And why is it that those problems not occur from the beginning? Because most of the time when I just start out, everything is working fine. I don't have any issues. But then suddenly, now as I'm scaling, as I'm making more money, then suddenly they hold back the money, they review my shop and so on. What's the reason behind that?
I would have to say one of the biggest things that an online seller can do is to communicate. Think of like your payment processor relationship, like your spouse in a way. Um, if you're going to scale and you're going to do something different from the business that is out of the ordinary, you should communicate that business plan to them, right? What happens is that, let's say, again, in drop shipping, they find a winning ad or they find a winning product, and all of a sudden their sales go from 10,000 a month to 150,000 in a month, right? That is going to get flagged 99% of the time and get reviewed, right? And that's like, well, why is this happening? Everything's working fine. Well, it depends, right? A lot of times these junior operators, like it could be their first time hitting something good. And the percentages say that most of the time there's tremendous issues, whether it's chargebacks, whether it's refunds, customer service, right? So you have to put together like a scaling plan, right? And we do these a lot of times for merchants that are trying to forecast. You should communicate that. Hey, I'm testing this, I'm selling into this market, I'm anticipating the volume to increase. So once your volume goes up, you should communicate that. They're going to find out either way, right? I think people are like, well, what if it triggers a review? Well, probably going to review it anyway. So you should have everything ready to go. You should have good supplier agreements. So there are preventative ways to kind of ensure that you aren't going to get reviewed. But I think your expectation should be that if you're going to spike that high, you're going to get reviewed. I mean, just be prepared, I think, is the better answer to the question versus why am I getting reviewed? I shouldn't get reviewed. Well, I think you should just be prepared to get reviewed, to be honest.
So what you're saying is basically communication is the key. It's important to communicate. How do I do that? Do I just send an email to Stripe, tell them, hey, look, this is what I'm planning in the next month, or how in practice does something like this work?
Every business should have a plan, right? I think when you look at it, if you just have like some napkin math, document of like what the execution is, that's probably not the best thing. You can put this together on your own. We have I shouldn't say we have some, we have a accredited one that we put together specific for banks and payment processing. You should have your go-to-market strategy, right? Where your entity is based, where your target markets are. Your supplier agreement is ultra critical, right? You don't want to have just a phone number and some guy sending you product when you make an order. It should be a document, right? It's an agreement if you're doing drop shipping with your supplier. You should have, proof that fulfillment is X amount of days, right? There should be some testing involved. So you want to have something in the document that has teeth in it that shows that you're viable, right? That you're not a scam. Because also what happens with pattern recognition is that if you see a massive spike all of a sudden too, that emulates a fraudster, because if money laundering is happening, that's typically the behavior pattern, right? There's a big influx of cash. So the computer or the algorithm is not going to determine whether this is fraud or that's fraud. But if you have a business plan, that makes a whole heck of a lot of difference when a human being is looking at it, right? Versus one that doesn't have a business plan, right? Okay, this one has all the information that I need to say, okay, I'm comfortable removing the hold and letting them go forward. This other one, I'm going to need to go collect the information, right? So there's kind of a list of things that we recommend to provide in a business plan, which we have this all built out, that would really kind of eliminate some of these just bottlenecks and snags.
Makes sense. So what you're saying is when I scale, the algorithm of Stripes in the first moment thinks, okay, wait, what is happening here? Is this a potential fraud? What is going on here? And then they have no clarity. So that's why they need to review my account. But if I have the communication up front, have a business plan, communicate with them, they know what's going on. So I can decrease basically the risk that they review my account, or what would be like the effect I get from that?
So the business plan typically, like I have, several of my larger clients. I mean, we have like 3 to 4 processors, and I'll just give you kind of an example. Anytime we have plans to go into certain markets, we typically will re-update our business plan that we've created and add additional information. If there's a new product launch, it's been tested. You got to think this is a human being that's looking at the account, by the way, right? The computer is going to stop you, but a human being is going to look at the information, right? Like you send in. So the goal is to make them comfortable. And in most cases, they say thanks. Thank you for letting us know, right? And you submit it through whether it's a support ticket or if you have a dedicated account manager, they'll log it. It just depends on the relationship that you have. In most cases, like with my processors that we work with, like we have a dedicated AM or partner manager. I flip it to them. They let their compliance team know, and we get back any issue. Do we see any issues here? If we do, 200,000 in volume before we were doing 50, like, hey, we're fine with that, but we want to, maybe we're going to do it with a 10% reserve, right? And so there's some negotiation there too. So yeah, that's really how we look at it.